Our talk title today is Mindful Intentions, as you've already heard. I think all of you know by now that I'm Reverend Mark Gilbert. I'm Global Services Coordinator for Centers for Spiritual Living, and I'm here to talk about intentions. And we've already heard a few quotes and a nice quote from Tim about how to create intentions, a way to bring it into your life. But we're going to delve a little bit deeper into this topic for the next few minutes. Now, I don't know how many of you read the little blurbs that come out on social media that talk about what the talk is going to be, but I wanted to read a couple of the last lines for the blurb that I think Alice and others were sending out this week about what I was going to talk about. And it said, we have to pay attention to what we intend. We don't want to create our life or our experience by default. Our intentions need to be nurtured with awareness, with faith, with practice. You read that again. We have to pay attention to what we intend. We don't want to create our life or experience by default. Our intentions need to be nurtured with awareness, with faith, with practice. So my question to you this morning is, are you paying attention to what you intend to create? Are you really paying attention to your intentions? I think I'd like to start off by sharing a few quotes with you. Another one from our founder, Ernest Holmes, a little bit shorter than the one Tim read, but it's very powerful, just as his was. Holmes wrote, "We are so intimately connected with the universal creative God power that it's impossible to get away from it. Hence, we never have to wonder whether or not we're in touch with it. It is where we are, and we are in it. It is in us. It's around us and flowing through us. We give direction to it. We have a perfect right to use it for any legitimate purpose of self-expression. If our whole intention is toward more life for ourselves and others, then nothing evil can result from the use of this law." One of my wife's favorite spiritual teachers has a few little sayings he likes to repeat often, and one of those, which has become sort of a watchword around the house when something might not go right, is this spiritual teacher says, intent is the building block of the outcome. Intent is the building block of the outcome. So when we don't get the outcomes that we're desiring, we have to remind ourselves to look at our intentions and were we mindful about them. A few other quotes for you. Carlos Castaneda, who wrote a lot of the Don Juan books that were influential for a number of us in my age group and was reading these back in college. He wrote, "In the universe, there's an immeasurable, indescribable force which shamans call intent. And absolutely everything that exists in the entire cosmos is attached to intent by a connecting link." A couple of more contemporary spiritual teachers, Wayne Dyer, who passed not too long ago, he wrote, "You get what you intend to create by being in harmony with the power of intention, which is responsible for all creation." And finally, Deepak Chopra writes, "Everything that happens in the universe starts with an intention." And he also wrote, "I place my intention into the vast ocean of all possibilities and allow the universe to work through me." Now, by now, you're saying, okay, enough with the quotes, Mark, stop it. I get it. You're really hammering on the fact that we need to be looking at our intentions. In fact, if you've been long for the science of mind studies, you know about the importance of intentions and how intentions create our existence, create our life. But sometimes we don't get what we want in this external world. Sometimes we look around and say it's less than what we want. And we have to ask ourselves, why is it, if we're so versed in the power and understanding of the power of intentions, why is it that we're not mindful about our intentions to a degree that we're continuously manifesting what we want? Now, I've written and done a number of videos on my YouTube channel about this very topic. I think one of my favorite ones is when the law of attraction appears not to work. And I use the word appears because it is working in those moments when it appears not to be. But there are so many times we don't get what we want or think that we want. And there's a lot of barriers and reasons as to why our intentions are not manifesting for us. More than I can cover in the few minutes that we're together this morning. But I want to highlight a couple and then dwell a little bit more on the third one. The first one that I want to mention as to why we might not always get what we want is because we live in a world of form that is continuously distracting to us. We can get on the meditation cushion, or we can write in our journal our intentions, and we can be inside ourselves and be aware of the great things that we want to manifest as a spiritual being living this human experience. And then we bump into the world out there, and the world out there can be so mesmerizing and captivating to us that it distracts us away from the intentions that we were carrying in our mind and heart just a few moments ago. Have you ever gotten off the meditation cushion and gone to work, and the very first thing that happened was that somebody caught you and said, hey, we've got a major crisis here, and you've got to help solve this thing. You've got to be on this meeting, this call, do this thing, order these products, whatever it is. You went from a state of bliss and calmness into a state of crisis and emergency just like that because of the mesmerizing nature of the world. Similarly, you can be coming out of one of our wonderful Science of Mind classes, and this has happened to me. I'll leave on a high from one of our classes, and I'm driving home, and somebody cuts me off. And all of a sudden, I'm out of that blissful state of unity and oneness, and upset about this person who broke in front of me or did something in the traffic that was less than what I wanted to occur. The world around us all the time bumps into us and gives us distractions that bring us out of our mindful intentions. So that's the very first one I want to highlight. And it's actually a subset of the one that I think is a major reason why we don't often manifest our intentions. And that is that we have inconsistent intentions. And our inconsistent intentions are demonstrated by our inconsistent thoughts, our inconsistent words, and our inconsistent deeds out into the world. It's one thing to say that I want a new career, and I want to manifest this new career, and I know that it's coming into my life in this moment. Yet at the same time, there's these thoughts that dwell up within me that say, well, who are you to use your special talents and abilities in the world to create a career? Who are you to have prosperity and abundance through the work that you are doing? Who are you? Are you worthy? All of that self-judgment and self-doubt comes up. How do you want to let go of your current life? Are you fearful about the unknown? And so these thoughts that they come in and they attack the intention. So on the one hand, we have this mindful intention of creating the greatest career, but on the other hand, we attack that intention with inconsistent thoughts that pick away at it and say, you're not worthy, you're less than, you don't deserve, or bring in fears and doubts. Similarly, if we're looking for a great relationship or a special loving relationship in our lives, we can have that belief pecked away at by thoughts that say, I don't deserve love. Who's going to care for me? I'm boring. I don't have enough money or prosperity. Who's going to be attracted to me in this moment? All of that negative self-talk that can come up can lead to inconsistent intentions and undermine the mindful intention that we're trying to create. We may sit back and say we want to create a world that works for everybody, but then we have thoughts that say, but there are these great powers that are undermining life, and they're not going to let us have the world that works for everyone. And it's so daunting because of this vast size and scope of this world that we seem to be living in. Who am I to create an intention that's going to impact this world that seems so large and greater beyond the scope of me as this little bitty human being? And then we look out at people that we judge as negative or different from us, and we say, yes, I want to create a world that works for all, but what about these people over here who don't believe and act like I do? Do I want to create a world that works for them as well? Each of these are examples of underlying intentions that are digging away at our mindful intentions and bringing an inconsistent intention into our life. But the third one I want to mention, and one that I want to focus on for just a little bit longer this morning, is that when our attentions are on the desires and needs of us as an individual, that sometimes are at the expense of the greater whole. What I want and what I feel that I want and need as this individual walking around in this lifetime is in conflict with what is needed by the greater good of everyone and the planet. I might want money, I want romance, I want a bigger house, I want to go to the store without wearing a mask, I want to go to a restaurant where we can interact freely, I want a car, a better job, I want these things for me. But on the other hand, there's another perspective that we can take where we recognize that we're part of a greater world, a greater whole, And that when we can cascade our intentions outward to incorporate a larger and larger scope of people, pockets of consciousness, pockets of the oneness of the divine, then our intentions can be in alignment with the greatest good for more people, and then they are truly serving a greater and higher need. When we can grow in our awareness and evolve to a place where we move beyond egotistical needs to needs for our family, our friends, our country, our world, all sentient beings, when we can cascade out our intentions to incorporate the needs and wants of all and take that into consideration, then we are truly growing and working towards creating a world that works for all. You know, this can be quite difficult, but it's not impossible to do. You know, I want to shift gears for just a second and talk about one of my wife's favorite TV shows. It's about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, she came to me and said, I want to start watching this TV show. It comes out of Canada. It's called Heartland. And I said, all right, honey, if it's important to you, let's watch this TV show. And the first couple of them, I was not sold on it. I thought it was the stories were simplistic, and it was somewhat of a limited kind of drama, and seemed sophomoric and immature and to a degree. But after a few episodes, I got hooked. And the gist of the story is, and it's produced by the Canadian Broadcasting Company, is that it's a ranch out in Western Canada where there was a grandfather who owned the ranch. His daughter lived with him. She was a horse whisperer and raised and trained horses, and she had 2 daughters from her prior marriage who lived with her. In the very first episode, the mother dies trying to save a horse. And the rest of the series is the development of the grandfather, the ranch, and the 2 daughters. One of the daughters inherited the mother's ability to be a horse whisperer and to train horses, and her name was Amy. And as Amy develops, as we go through the series, we see Amy taken from a teenager to a young woman to getting married and having a child and so forth. And through this pattern, we see this orbit of the family getting larger and larger and larger. They're beautiful stories, but one of the things that occurred to me the other day when I was thinking about an episode that we had watched the night before is that every one of the stories of Heartland, the only drama that comes up in them is because one character has a desire or need that's bumping up against the needs and desires of another character, or against the needs and desires of the greater family or the community or something larger than themselves. That there is this conflict that exists between our intentions and a greater intention. And to give you just a quick example, an episode we watched the other day was Amy didn't want to take on a new horse client. This horse client seemed like a bullying type. Her husband, Ty, spoiler alert if you're just starting in the series, she gets married later on. Her husband says, I think we should take this client on. She says no. The next thing you know, this bullying client goes out on social media and starts writing negative stuff about him. The husband comes back to Amy and says, we should really take this on to stop it, or it's going to hurt our business of training horses. So she, against her better judgment, takes on this client, this bullying client, starts working with his wild horse. Another storyline, which I won't go into, leads to a horse that's been out traveling and coming back, having an illness, and places ultimately a quarantine on the entire ranch. So here's this bullying person who's given the horse to them for training, and the next thing you know, his horse is included in a vast quarantine and he can't get access to his own horse. And that just sets him off even more on his bullying and his negative social media conflicts. Well, when you step back and look at this story, what you realize is that we've got the bully who wants to create the world and what he wants. We've got the husband, Ty, who wants to avoid negative publicity so their business can thrive. We've got Amy who wants to please her husband. Everybody sort of sits back with their own individual needs and desires and intentions. And that bouncing into each other creates that conflict. Every show you watch, the vast majority of the drama that occurs in those shows relates to intentions that are egotistical, bouncing into other people's egotistical intentions. Now, I highly recommend Heartland. It's a great program, but it's good to watch drama as entertainment. But it's a little more difficult when we look at the world that we consider real around us and see events that are transpiring where egotistical and self-centered intentions bump into one another. Our own personal heartland that we carry within us has been touched in recent days because of the events involving George Floyd. I know all of us have opened our hearts to the sad events as we've looked at what's transpired in that particular circumstance, where we look at the events of the Minneapolis police and what appears to be the murder of an individual, a murder that's led by egotistical beliefs and actions based on the policeman who kneeled on his neck, by the other policeman who stood by and did nothing, by the actions of the police who tried to cover up the event early on until the video came out and they couldn't. Everywhere there was an intention, an egotistical intention that bumped into what was the intention for the greater good. You know, I thought about the characters in Heartland, and if they had stood back and said, I want to intend what's the best for the greatest good of everyone, there would be very less drama in those stories. But what would our world be like if we each stepped back from our egotistical intentions and said, what if I intended in this moment what was for the greatest good for more than just me? Racism is a scourge upon our planet and it's upon our country. But racism at its root is really an egotistical belief that myself or my people are better than, greater than, deserve to have more things, a better life than others. It's placing ourselves in conflict with the greater needs of everyone. Each of us in this moment are called to create a mindful intention as to how we can look out at the United States and what's going on in the country right now and manifest a higher and greater vision. How can we create a world that works for all through this moment that's occurring in our culture right now and continues to occur as we watch like the events that unfolded in Atlanta over the weekend? It continues to be something that we know has been out there that we need to step into and create an intention and work together for the greater good for all. You know, it's something that I think is touching at each of us to call to action of some sort. And what you're called to act in this moment and what intention that you desire to do to end the conflict, to end the mistreatment of blacks or any disenfranchised people is welling up within the land of your heart in this moment, right now. I want to go back for a moment in closing and read the initial quote that I read to you from Holmes. He wrote, "We're so intimately connected with the universal creative God power, it's impossible to get away from it. Hence, we never have to wonder whether or not we're in touch with it. It's where we are, and it's in us. It's around us. It's flowing through us. We give direction to it. We have a perfect right to use it for any legitimate purpose of self-expression." Key here, listen to this sentence. If our whole intention is toward more life for ourselves and others, then nothing evil can result from this law. Our intention needs to be for ourselves and others. We need to be thinking about, when we're creating mindful intentions, about what's the greatest and highest intention for ourself and the greater good for all. Deepak Chopra, make sure your intentions are not only for yourself, but also for the common good. Wayne Dyer writes, until you transcend the ego, you can do nothing but add to the insanity of the world. So why do we need to constantly be reminded about the power of intentions? It's because oftentimes we get distracted by the world. We have inconsistent intentions. There's other factors at play. But oftentimes our intentions are motivated by self-interest and don't consider the greater good of all. The conflicts that are occurring out in the planet right now, the insanity that is occurring out on the planet right now, opens the heartland within us to create a better and greater world. So what I invite you to consider in this moment as we close and as we go into prayer is what is your heartland calling you to do? What mindful intention? Is it to march in the streets? Is it to give to the nonprofit that you think is doing the best work? Is it to write your congressman? Whatever it is. And I cannot say for you what is your particular call to action in this moment. But I know there is a mindful intention in all of us to look out at this mesmerizing world of insanity and to say no more. We're going to now step forward with mindful, consistent intentions and action to create a world that works for everyone, no exceptions. Let's pray. It's in this moment that we know and feel and realize the oneness of all of life. We realize there is only one God, one power, one divine essence. It flows through myself. It flows through everyone watching this live stream. It is flowing through everyone on this planet. It flows through all that is. And as I look out upon this world, I know that I have the greatest and highest hopes and desires for this world. I know and sense that there is an evolutionary arc that is ever moving upward to greater levels of kindness, love, generosity, prosperity. All things good and glorious are manifesting now. I know that every person who hears these words, that they become a force for good, that they set mindful intentions to create a world that works for all. They look out at the insanity of the planet that is around them, and they break through the mesmerizing nature of it and anchor their awareness in the divine flow of what is best for all. And they hold that intention consistently. They hold it and they act upon it through their thoughts, their words, their deeds. And through this, we create a better country. We create a better world. We create one where racism is a long forgotten memory of the distant past, where we recognize the uniqueness of every individual and value their abilities in such a beautiful and glorious way that we just know that every expression is an expression of the divine. We are creating that world now. Each and every one of us are doing it in our own unique and beautiful ways. Thank you, God. And so it is.
Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. There's a similar video right here next to my face if you want to click on it. Also, if you want to get notifications of future videos, be sure to hit that subscribe button on the bottom left-hand corner. If you'd like to contact me, email me at the address on the screen or drop me a comment in the comment field below on YouTube. Thanks.